A Nissan Rogue owner told his dealer, "They replaced my battery, but it didn't fix it." Why? Because the battery was never the problem. It was the engine itself. This isn't a one-off story. Owners across the country have experienced loss of power, hesitation, even complete shutdowns, all linked to Nissan's ambitious but flawed VC-Turbo design. In this video, we'll uncover how software fixes and oil changes are merely distractions, not solutions. Once you hear how this story unfolds, you'll understand why this car owner called the engine design stupid and exactly what he meant. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Imagine your car stalling on the highway, not because the gas tank is empty, but because the very engine that's supposed to power it simply gave up. That's exactly what many people who bought Nissan models equipped with the VC-Turbo are facing. This engine was supposed to be a global first, a bold leap in technology where compression ratios could be adjusted on the fly. Nissan marketed it as the holy grail of efficiency. High compression when you need fuel economy. Low compression when you demand power. On paper, it looked like something straight out of an engineering textbook. In reality, it's become one of the most fragile and failure-prone engines Nissan has ever put into production. The core of the design relies on a complicated system of moving levers and an eccentric shaft that constantly changes the piston stroke inside the cylinder. That motion alters compression ratios in real time, a concept makers have been chasing for decades. The idea sounds brilliant, but there's a problem. The constant shifting creates new stress points. Instead of one stable arrangement inside the engine, you now have parts sliding and repositioning under extreme pressure every second your car runs. That's dozens of high-load components depending on each other with no margin for error. When one weak link falters, the whole cycle collapses. Nissan promised that this complexity would pay off through revolutionary fuel economy. Yet owners quickly discovered the numbers barely moved. At best, some reported fuel savings of 3 to 4% compared to a conventional turbocharged engine. That's barely noticeable on a road trip and nowhere near the marketing claims. When the gap between promise and reality is that wide, it creates frustration, especially when the payoff is so minor compared to the headaches hiding in the background. One Rogue owner learned this the hard way. The vehicle stalled repeatedly, so the dealership replaced the battery, assuming it was a simple electrical issue. But the problem never improved. The hesitation remained, the stalling came back, and the frustration grew. Stories like that are common. It's not just a dead battery or bad fuel. It's an engine that can't decide whether it wants to idle smoothly or completely shut down. Drivers report rough idling when stopped, a high-pitched whining noise under acceleration, and in the most severe cases, the car shutting down in the middle of traffic. Imagine pressing the gas pedal only to feel the vehicle stumble and go silent. Problems like that aren't small inconveniences. They create real safety risks on the road. Research into these failures points toward the same culprit over and over again: bearing wear. The unique VC design places unusual stresses on the main bearings that support the crankshaft. Over time, those bearings degrade much faster than in a traditional engine. Once that happens, the chain reaction begins. Loss of oil pressure, unusual noises, vibrations, and eventually complete failure. It's not that one specific part is cheaply made, it's that the entire design guarantees that wear will come early. What's troubling is Nissan's response. Instead of addressing the fundamental problem, most fixes involve minor service updates. Things like tweaking the software that manages the engine cycle or suggesting an oil change at slightly different intervals. Those are temporary bandages that don't touch the root cause. And as more miles stack up, the failures keep returning. For customers, it feels less like a solution and more like a stall tactic. The truth is, these engines stumble not because of a bad sensor or a failing alternator, but because the whole blueprint sets them up for it. That's why so many of these breakdowns feel unavoidable, no matter how carefully the vehicles are maintained. And this isn't just a Nissan problem. The same story of bold designs hiding deep weaknesses shows up in Honda's lineup too, only with a different twist. If Nissan's issues sound bad, wait until you hear what's happening to Honda owners. For decades, Honda built its reputation on engines that seemed to run forever with only basic care. The 3.5-liter V6 in particular was a customer favorite, powering everything from family minivans to crossovers and sedans. People trusted these engines to start every morning, haul kids to school, and log hundreds of thousands of miles. But now, that same engine is at the center of a federal safety investigation involving more than 1.4 million vehicles. That's not a small oversight. It's one of the largest and most serious engine-related probes Honda has ever faced. Government investigators dug into reports submitted by owners and found at least 414 documented failures of this V6. What's more alarming is that these aren't just check engine light annoyances or rough idle complaints. They include real accidents, crashes linked to sudden engine breakdowns, and even one confirmed case where the failure led to a fire. You don't get those kinds of outcomes unless the problem runs much deeper than the surface. And clearly, it's not something isolated to a handful of unlucky drivers. It's systemic. So how has Honda responded up to this point? In many cases, dealers advised owners to switch to a heavier grade oil, claiming that a slightly thicker lubricant would reduce wear on the sensitive parts inside the engine. Others receive software updates designed to tweak how the engine manages power delivery. These remedies sound reassuring at first, but in practice they only hide symptoms for a short while. They do almost nothing to slow the actual bearing wear that lies at the heart of the issue. Once bearings start to deteriorate, no thicker oil or digital patch is going to stop them from grinding apart. Think about what that means in real life. You've got parents driving a Honda Odyssey thinking they're in one of the safest and most dependable minivans ever built. Then, in traffic, they hear a grinding sound from under the hood. The steering wheel starts to vibrate. That noise is a signal the bearings are wearing through. And unlike a squeaky brake or a bad belt, it's not an easy repair. The only true fix is to tear down the engine or replace it entirely. For families who thought buying a Honda meant avoiding that nightmare, it feels like a betrayal. And this isn't just about V6 engines. The Civic, Honda's most iconic sedan, has its own troubling track record. If you trace Civic history, certain model years stand out as especially bad. 2001-2006, the stretch through 2007 and 2008, and then again in 2016 and even 2022. Those dates aren't random. They line up with first-year redesigns, which for Honda have often become synonymous with teething problems that cost owners thousands in unexpected repairs. Take the 2016 Civic as an example. Buyers rushed to dealerships for the brand new turbocharged lineup, only to face oil dilution problems from the direct injection system. The engine oil would mix with fuel, robbing it of the ability to properly lubricate key components. At the same time, the infotainment systems glitched so badly that entire screens would freeze or shut off while driving. For a car marketed as the future of Honda reliability, it felt like a step backward. Honda and Nissan tell the same story. Engines built on ambitious ideas that fall apart under real driving conditions. Instead of addressing the real mechanical flaws, both brands keep leaning on patches like revised software or slight maintenance changes. That might buy time, but it doesn't rebuild customer trust. If you're looking at either brand, don't accept those surface-level fixes at face value. Research the engine, look into failure histories, and question easy solutions. A reliable car should bring confidence every time you turn the key, not leave you wondering if the engine itself can be counted on tomorrow.